I am 102 years old. I have outlived my wife. I have outlived my friends. I have outlived my enemies. And I have outlived the version of myself that used to think I had it all figured out. I am standing at the very edge of the cliff. I can see the bottom. And before I go over, I need to turn around and tell you what I see. Because you are living with the arrogant delusion that you have time. You treat your days like they are cheap, like you have an infinite supply of them sitting in the bank. But I am here to tell you that you are broke. We are all going to die. You know this intellectually, but you don't feel the cold steel of it against your neck. If you did, you wouldn't be wasting your life the way you are. Before I go, I need to tell you something about God. Let me tell you about Richard. It was 1955. Richard was my business partner. He was sharper than me, richer than me, more successful than me in every way that the world measures success. Richard built an empire. Real estate, investments, respect from everyone who knew his name. We were having dinner one night, celebrating his biggest deal. He was smoking a cigar, leaning back in his chair, and he looked at me and said, "Frank, 5 more years. That's the strategy. I grind for 5 more years, hit my number, then I retire. Then it'll figure out the God stuff. Then it'll make peace." Richard had a strategy for everything except his soul. 3 weeks later, Richard collapsed in his office. Massive stroke. He was 48 years old. I stood over his casket, and I realized something that haunts me to this day. Richard spent his whole life building a kingdom, but he never met the king. His company replaced him in 2 weeks. His clients forgot his name in a year. The empire he built crumbled like dust. But the tragedy wasn't that Richard died. We all die. The tragedy was that Richard spent 48 years running from a God who was standing perfectly still. He traded eternity for a leather chair and a corner office. He thought he had time to get right with God later, when things settled down, when he hit his number. But later never came. I think about Richard every single day, because when I look at you, I see the same thing. You are making the same bet Richard made. You are telling yourself you'll get serious about your soul when life calms down, when the kids are older, when you retire, when you have more time. Let me give you a hard fact from a 102-year-old man who has been to too many funerals. There is no later. There is only now. Your calendar is booked for 6 months, but God isn't waiting for an opening in your schedule. You treat your soul like a waiting room for a better future that never arrives. And the cruelest part is you think you are in control of the timeline. I spent 40 years telling God not yet because I was too busy, too proud, too comfortable. Then my wife Eleanor got sick, and I realized I had wasted 4 decades arguing with Grace. Richard never got his 5 more years, and you might not get tomorrow. You tell yourself you'll get right with God when things settle down. You'll pray when the kids are older. He'll read Scripture when I retire. He'll find faith when I have more time. We'll figure out the God stuff after I close this deal, after I get the promotion, after I pay off the house. You are living in a fantasy. There is no after. There is no magical moment when your life suddenly becomes less complicated and you have the bandwidth to deal with your soul. That moment doesn't exist. It never has, and it never will. I have been to too many funerals where the person was planning to get serious about God next year turned into a hospital room, next year turned into a casket, next year turned into eternity without preparation. You think you're being strategic, you think you're prioritizing, but what you're actually doing is gambling with the most important decision you will ever make. Your calendar is booked for 6 months. You have meetings, deadlines, obligations, but God isn't waiting for an opening in your schedule. He isn't checking your availability. The door's open right now, but it won't stay open forever. You treat your soul like a waiting room, like something you'll get to eventually, when you have a free afternoon, when life calms down, when you're ready. But here's the thing, you will never be ready. There will always be something else demanding your attention. There will always be another crisis, another opportunity, another excuse to push God to the back of the line. The cruelest part is you think you're in control of the timeline. You think you get to decide when the conversation happens. You think you're the one setting the terms. You're not. I spent 40 years telling God, not yet. Not yet. I'm building my career. Not yet. I'm raising my family. Not yet. I'm too busy. Not yet. I'm not ready. I was 65 years old, sitting in a hospital waiting room while Eleanor had surgery when I finally ran out of not yets. I had spent my whole life building empires, and I realized I couldn't save the one person I loved. I couldn't control anything that actually mattered. That's when it hit me. I am not God. And pretending to be God is exhausting. I wasted 4 decades arguing with grace, 4 decades running from a God who was standing perfectly still, waiting for me to stop running. There is only now. And if you are trading your now for a later that it's promised, you are making the worst bet in history. You are betting your eternity on the assumption that you'll wake up tomorrow. That's not faith. That's arrogance. Let's talk about what you're actually chasing. I look at your generation, and you are obsessed with accumulation. You buy things you don't need with money you don't have to impress people you don't like. You work yourself to death for stuff that will end up in a dumpster. I used to have a big house, luxury cars, a garage full of toys. I am telling you, with the absolute clarity of the end game, it is all garbage. I have never seen a U-Haul following a hearse. When you die, strangers will throw 90 of your stuff in a dumpster and sell the rest for quarters at a yard sale. That's the sum total of your materialism, future trash. So why are you working 60 hours a week, missing your daughter's childhood, to pay for a car that sits in traffic? Why are you sacrificing your marriage to buy a house you're never home to enjoy? Why are you destroying your health to accumulate things that won't matter in 6 months? It's madness. In 1979, I won Businessman of the Year. Big banquet, black tie, applause. I walked up to that podium, and I felt like a god. I felt like I had won the game. I went home that night holding the trophy. The house was dark. Eleanor was asleep. The kids were asleep. I sat alone at my kitchen table staring at that piece of glass, and I realized the applause had stopped. It lasted maybe 30 seconds. And now it was just me, in the dark, holding a trophy that already felt meaningless. The people at that dinner didn't care about me. They cared about what I could do for them. And the people upstairs, the people who actually loved me, I had neglected them for months to win that piece of glass. I missed my son's varsity games to stay late at the office. I missed my anniversary dinner to close a merger. And for what? That trophy is in a box in a basement somewhere. I don't even know where it is. But the memory of my wife's sad eyes when I told her I couldn't make it to dinner, that stays. That's right here. Your career is not your legacy. It's a transaction. You are selling hours you will never get back to build someone else's castle. If you drop dead today, your job posting goes online before your obituary. Do not worship at the altar of your career or your stuff. It will not hold your hand when the lights go out. It will not give you peace when you're lying in that hospital bed, staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., wondering if you wasted your life. The good Lord doesn't care about your portfolio. He doesn't care about your title or your square footage or the car you drive. None of that impresses Him. None of that gets you through the door. You think you're building security. You think you're building a legacy. But what you're actually building is a monument to your own fear. Fear that you don't matter. Fear that you're not enough. Fear that if you stop grinding, you'll disappear. So you keep accumulating, you keep chasing, and the whole time, the only thing that actually matters is slipping through your fingers. So what actually matters? If the money is fake, and the career is a trap, and the stuff is garbage, what's left? He'll tell you. The only things you get to keep are the things you gave away. I sit in this chair, and I don't replay my business deals. I don't think about the mergers or the contracts or the victories that felt so important at the time. I replay Sunday mornings with Eleanor. I replay the sound of my daughter laughing when she was 3. I replay the moment I finally stopped running and let God catch me. It was 1987. I was 65 years old, sitting in that hospital waiting room while Eleanor had surgery. I had spent my whole life building empires, and I realized I couldn't save the one person I loved. That's when I understood I am not God, and pretending to be God is exhausting. I got on my knees in that waiting room and I said, Lord, I'm tired. I can't do this anymore. And He said, I know. I've been waiting. That was the moment everything changed. Not because my circumstances changed. Eleanor still had cancer. I was still terrified. But I stopped carrying the weight. I stopped pretending I was in control. I stopped running from the only one who could actually give me peace. The peace I found that day is the only thing that's lasted. Everything else turned to dust. The money, the awards, the respect, it all crumbled. But that peace, it's right here. It stays. I learned that a hard heart is like a rusted engine. It takes grace to get it running again. And faith is like a flashlight in a storm. It doesn't stop the storm, but it shows you where to step. You think you need to clean yourself up before you come to God. You think you need to get your life together first, fix your mistakes, become worthy. Child, listen. You come to Him dirty, and He does the cleaning. That's the whole point. You don't earn grace. You can't. You just stop running and let it catch you. I wasted 40 years trying to be good enough, trying to deserve it, trying to build something impressive enough that God would notice me. But He was already there. He was always there, standing perfectly still while I ran in circles. The Sunday mornings with Eleanor after I stopped running, those were different. We prayed together. We read Scripture together. We sat in silence together and felt the presence of something bigger than our fear. That's what I replay now. Not the trophies, not the deals. The quiet moments where I finally let go and felt held. When Eleanor died, I was devastated. But I wasn't alone. I had spent 20 years building a foundation that could hold me when everything else collapsed. I had peace that didn't make sense to anyone watching from the outside. That peace is the only wealth there is. The door is still open, but it won't stay open forever. Stop waiting for the perfect moment to turn around. This is the moment. Tell me in the comments, where are you looking for peace today?